Top restaurant right there. So every time we pulled up, the guy would come out with a handful of margaritas, Japanese margaritas. Yeah, every time you could, and they would get in the car, drive the car, you had anything in your car, they took it right here. It's like a city. Oh, you know, like, and they come and cook something right there. Really, because I didn't want to do it. I can just see rich people, you know, they just say, yeah, we want to have a steak dinner by 7 o'clock. Yeah, that's where you go, all people that have a lot of money. You can really get.
Okay, I've got 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Certification of compliance with open meeting law. Please check the door, make sure it's open, please. Roll call.
Slaughter.
Here.
Martins.
Here.
Gajewski.
Here.
Okay, pledge the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. Approved minutes from May 8th, 2023 town board meeting and May 25th, 2023 special town board meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
You have a motion to approve the minutes from both meetings and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approve bills as presented.
For Wheat Energies in May for street lighting, it was $61.46. We had an invoice from Lynch and Associates for the work that they have done on the VIL grants, $1,237.50. Jefferson County Highway, we had some brine charges and signage, which came to $3,247.81. Wheat Energies in May for by the airport was $213.76. Johnson and Block, we had our last invoice for the audit, which came out to $1,300. Brightspeed, which is our internet provider, was $117.05. LRS is the garbage and sanitation. Garbage was $6,717.16, and recycling was $3,063.27. In June, the Wheat Energies street lighting was $61.44, and the June airport was $116.15. Northwest Services, we had 3 invoices that came out to $11,060.75. Jefferson County Highway, because we had some signage replaced or put in place, $499.40. Jefferson County Clerk, the last bill for the spring election was $504.75. The law firm, we had an invoice that came to $1,305.87. Gajewski's salary was $230.87. Sauter's salary plus some reimbursement for mileage came out to $489.92. Martin's salary with some reimbursements for mileage and overnight stay for classes was $599.55. Lowry's salary plus reimbursements for office supplies and a registration for Rob to attend his class was $3,464.12. And we owed a gentleman for property tax change, and that came to $143.34. That is a roll call. Sauter.
I vote to pay the bills.
Martins.
Second. Aye.
Gajewski.
Aye.
Okay, public comment. Get the sheet there, or where is it? Okay, we're gonna try and limit this to 3 to 4 minutes. Usually I don't limit things. However, if you look at the agenda, it's a long agenda, folks. So state your name, your address. Dave Hefton.
David Hefkin, W367, South 4601, Highway 67, Dousman. I'm here basically to let everybody know that next Saturday at about 8 o'clock, we're going to be having apparently a joint meeting, as Frank was saying, over at the municipal building, where the Airport Commission is inviting the new town board members to join us for a brief business meeting, which is required in the beginning. And then we are going to have 2 trams that are going to bring any of the public who wants to go around and ask questions and see anything that goes on at the airport. We can hold approximately 55 people on the trams. So more than that, they'll have to walk. Less than that, that's fine too. So anybody is welcome from the public. They can ask questions along the way pertaining to the airport or aviation. If it pertains to the Packers, I don't care. I don't think the board does. I don't think, but it's basically for the airport. Anything that might be of a question or a concern could be brought up over at that time, and then I think we will then probably go back to the building and have, because we haven't worked out the details, I just found out the joint portion of it, but then I think the board members might have some questions. Hopefully we can answer those maybe along the way.
When I get to the airport section, I'll briefly mention what we can do, but I have to stay on track here the right way, but I'll mention that.
Okay. And the other thing, just so folks know, and it's nothing to do with anybody, I'm the airport town, or the airport chairman, and I put my name in to do the official airport report, and I was not included on. So I'm just like to state that, and we are trying to do that. The other thing that I would like to bring up is more of a personal matter. When it comes to the airport, with the new town board, it's not against the law, but I would say from my opinion, you know, when we go to local businesses or watering holes, we shouldn't be talking about town business to other folks around there. It may not be against the law, like I said, but it's kind of in poor form to go and talk about things. And my number is listed. Anybody can call me anytime. We can call the commissioners that are on there. I spend approximately 3,600 minutes a month on the phone. So anybody wants to give me a call from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, Monday through Thursday, Friday 8 to 4, Saturday 8 to 4, Sunday don't call. But if you have any questions whatsoever, I have talked to Frank a couple of times, and I have talked briefly to Josh about another matter. But anybody is welcome to call if you have any questions at the airport. So, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Bonnie Wilson.
Bonnie Wilson, I'm a town resident on W1269 State Road 59, Palmyra. And I'm speaking in regards to a comment that Mr. Sauter made towards Mr. Radecki's email at the last special board meeting on the 25th of May. And you had stated that after reading Mr. Radecki's email to his fellow colleagues urging them to attend the meeting, you started to say that he had no right to say some of the things he said, and I commend Mr. Martins for speaking up and saying, yes, he has a right to say what he wants to say in his own emails. But then he went on to say, Frank, that as a member of the Palmyra Airport Commission, and I forgot to bring it with me, but you said that, in your personal opinion, if he is making hasty decisions without further investigation, in your personal opinion, he shouldn't be there. And you added that he never talked to you and he never asked for your views. And the only response I can say, and that this initiated my response, is that, Frank, you have done that very exact same thing. Because last August, you stood before the town board and you accused the Fire and EMS Committee of never contacting Whitewater for fire and EMS protection. I was sitting right there, I was on the committee, you never talked to me, you never asked my personal opinions, and you apparently didn't do a thorough investigation because I have an email, a copy of an email from the president of the board of directors and the fire captain of Whitewater Fire Department. Captain. And it said in that email, which I meant to bring and didn't because I was rushing to get here, but basically it said that they were very much interested in providing service to the community. So my suggestion is, like Mr. Hoffman, that he just said, use a little bit of discretion when you're expressing personal opinions. Be careful, because I know we all jumped the gun, but you basically accused Mr. Radecki of doing something that you yourself have done. Some of us have probably done too, so I'm suggesting practicing caution and diplomacy, especially since you are a sitting board member, so you are more in the public.
Right, I appreciate everything you said today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
John Mitchell.
Hi, I'm John Mitchell, 7916 North County Line Road, Whitewater, Wisconsin. I'm on the Airport Commission, and I may be out of place here right now because I didn't know I should public comment or wait for the airport report on your agenda. So which would you like me to do? I mean, I just have a brief summary here, what's going on.
Well, actually, we're gonna take the whole airport matter up on the 17th. Okay, the only thing I'm gonna be talking about at time of the airport report is about the meeting we're going to have and move forward.
The meeting we're gonna have on Saturday?
Correct.
Okay, that's on part of my quick agenda. Let me read this off and I think we'll be done, okay? So my profit and loss right now, we won't have that information until next quarter. I don't handle the profit and loss stuff. I can't do, Bob Zarell does, and I don't have that information. And then, we don't have anything going on at the airport other than the pancake breakfast is our biggest event right now. No new construction projects other than the stormwater thing is supposed to start after the pancake breakfast, but I don't have an exact date on that. That's up to the contractors and the Bureau of Aeronautics and all that, those guys. And Saturday, that meeting is posted out here for just the general public if they want to know what time it is. The official stuff is out on the kiosk where it's supposed to be. So that's posted. And our next quarterly meeting, according to that agenda, is going to be determined Saturday the 17th. And that's, again, going to be public knowledge once it does get put out there. That's all I can report from the airport right now. Everything else is running along pretty smooth. There aren't any major problems of any sort or anything going on out there, so.
I appreciate you very much, thank you.
I just
Okay.
want to add to that, Dave dropped off P&L in the Dropbox.
Oh, he did, okay.
Yeah. So in each of your packets at the very back, I put in a copy of what Dave had dropped off. The very.
Now, any questions on our profit loss, you might want to wait till Saturday, like you said, because that profit loss gets confusing. It takes me a while to sit down and study and all that kind of stuff, so. But, do you have any other questions for me right now while I'm here?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, I look forward to seeing you guys Saturday then.
See you.
Good night, everybody.
No. Kristen?
Kristen Sheehan.
Sheila?
My apologies, I thought it was a sign-in sheet.
Oh,
I have no comment.
oh, okay.
I'm glad.
Chris Klein?
Oh, yeah. I'm Chris Klein. I live on N727 Blue Spring Lake Drive. I just got some comments about the road. I'm just wondering if we can like repave it or...
And that's reference Blue Spring Lake Road right off H.
Yep, up to the lake.
We have that on, the agenda, so if you'd like to mention that, I'd appreciate that. If you want to stick around.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. Thank you. Reports. Treasurer.
In the general fund, we have $306,158.71. In the tax account, we have $9,020. And the LGIP general, we have $442.33. And the LGIP fire and EMS, we have $2.78. In the airport, we have $14,197.40. And in the LGIP airport, we have 55 cents. And I will file that.
Okay, thank you. Highway? Ron?
The other thing that's left is Kellen Lane, fixing that, which we'll probably get on, if it doesn't rain tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll get on Wednesday. And that, we both, you and Chris had looked at with me, I believe I was with Chris.
Or
but I know I got you. Josh, sorry.
Where was I yesterday? I actually took a UTV ride. And I think we were starting to try and pave one of the roads. The road is so bad. I'm
Yeah.
kind of joking around. I think it was Carlin Trail Mill Road.
Yep.
They're just horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
This fall, you might want to think right now, a year and a half ago, we cut all the trees, but the oak trees to clear for all the farm equipment and stuff down the island and everything, and never finished that, but, well, obviously we can't cut on oaks now until a moratorium, that'll be going in the fall.
Another one I looked at yesterday, you see Frank and Josh, we're gonna have to cut back brush or stuff growing in front of the stop signs. And I noticed it on Little Prairie, some on Tamarack.
Well, we'll start mowing Monday.
Well, I'm talking things are gonna have to be cut back.
Right, I know, he's
I
gonna
don't
write,
mean big limbs like this, but you got the little ones coming over in front of the stop.
15-mile-an-hour sign, there's a big branch right in front of you, you don't see it until you're right there.
right, he'll write notes as he mows, because he's only going 1 mile an hour. So as he's doing that, he'll stop and write notes, and then I can get a hold of all you guys, and then whatever's minor we can take care of, and whatever we need to come to the meeting next month, it'll all be.
Please discuss that with Josh.
Yep.
Okay, because he's keeping an eye on, that's his forte, and
Yep.
he's keeping an eye on that. But we got money issues. We're gonna have to talk about that, okay? So, and I suppose you want your check and move on.
On to the next town. And the pothole one's all done. So if anybody's got potholes, that reappear, just like we did Hooper, and within a month,
Oh, I already signed
goes
it.
back to potholes again.
There's one you missed on.
Did they get it?
You know, where it's real bad, right, when you turn on the, right in the middle of the road, right at the top of the
Like,
thing, there's.
recently you've seen this?
Yeah, right after you patched last time, it was like you just flat out missed it.
Like a month ago?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
if it was thin, we were doing weird, oh, it was deep?
Yeah.
So then they should've got it.
Yeah, I think.
Then I can't make no excuses for myself.
I tried.
They missed one of the 350,000.
Yeah.
Take it easy, everybody, and I will have them check that tomorrow.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything more on highway?
We had our first highway committee meeting, last week, I think Thursday, it seems as though it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And some of the recommendations out of the committee are on the agenda for later tonight, so.
Fire department,
Well,
nice to see you.
This is my last time seeing you in this capacity. I just wanted to thank the town residents for the support of our department over the years, support of me as we went through some pretty significant transitions in the department, and things didn't go real well, I don't think, for the first couple of years of that, but thank you for continuing on with us, and I know I've talked to all three of you one-on-one at some point in since the last meeting each, so I'll be here through June 30th. There should be someone in place by then. I believe the Police and Fire Commission made a selection last week, and they're working out details on that. So, yeah, if you have any questions on anything, you can certainly answer those now or by phone.
I'll ask one you addressed it at the village board meeting, the ambulance.
Oh, the ambulance?
50
Yep.
with the ambulance.
Yep, we had, ambulance was involved in a vehicle crash, 2 weeks ago now, almost 2 weeks ago. We did have 2 EMTs that were hurt in that they got hit in an intersection in Waukesha at where 59 hits the bypass there on the south side of Waukesha. I haven't seen investigative reports from the police department yet. Waukesha Police is investigating. We do still have an EMT who is still out with an injury from that. Ambulance is out of service. Our backup ambulance is in service, so we have one ambulance in service. That crash happened about 6 o'clock at night. We were back up and running by 10 that night. So we expect to have our primary ambulance back maybe in the next couple of weeks. It's at a shop down in Illinois that specializes in that, and it went in last week. So we should be back to full capacity with the ambulances, I would think, within a few weeks.
So the patient was all right, I mean, nothing
Yep.
from the.
Yep, absolutely. The patient had no injuries whatsoever from the crash. They were strapped on the cot. The cot did what it was supposed to do, and protected the person. So
Well, I personally want to thank you for your service.
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. If you don't have anything else on your agenda that you need to see me for, I'm going to leave too before we're here till midnight with your agenda.
Have a good night.
Okay, take care.
See you later.
James.
Airport. We're gonna try and move it quick. The airport. Okay, you know we were having difficulties there, trying to get a meeting together. There is gonna be a special meeting at 8:30 at the airport garage over here, Saturday. It's gonna be a joint meeting. We have a regular agenda. We're gonna have to go through that. We're gonna get that done as quick as we can, but we've gotta be thorough. I will say this, I appreciate Mr. Hefty coming in and starting to bring us up to speed. That's all we wanted to begin with. We just wanna make this flow. We want it to flow, we want the airport to be successful, and let's just start moving forward. We'll get everything ironed out on Saturday, I hope, but it shouldn't be too difficult to do that. Anything you want to ask anything about that? Okay, Blue Spring Lake District.
Just a couple things tonight. We are close to having, I think we've got a meeting Thursday night to talk about the dam report. I believe that's Thursday night, of the Lake District Board. And then getting information from the engineers on what needs to be done, what upgrades are needed, et cetera, costs. Then the annual fireworks at Blue Spring Lake are Sunday, July 2nd, starting at dusk, but with a fallback of Monday the 3rd for rain day. And the parade, the annual parade out there is also on Sunday. It's a change from the last many years. Instead of starting at 2 p.m. It's now starting at 11 and checking at 10:15, so that'd be a little early.
And where's that line up? Start lining up?
That line's up out by the old schoolhouse on North Blue Spring Lake, just up where the public access is to the weed cutter, right there. So that's it for.
Building inspector.
We've had one electrical for service, one building for solar, one electrical for solar, all for $47.
There we go. Emergency management plan. Talked to Donna Holcomb from the county, who's getting me situated with that. There's a couple courses that are gonna be coming up if we get enough people to sign up. Winona was in about a week or so ago and did give me the latest update on all our phone contact numbers. Really appreciate that. Everybody's got it, correct? So that's all I have to say on that. Number 8, Sheriff's Department. You've never seen that on here before. Just like usual, listen to the audience, they're not here. Now, they reached out to Laura and I about coming to our monthly meetings. We give a report, being able to ask, answer any questions the public has. I reached out to Deputy, what's his name, Patrick? Wally, Finley, stuff like that. Spoke to him. Said he would have somebody here tonight. called dispatch this morning and reminded him also, nobody here. But I thought it would be a good thing to have. I noticed over in Waukesha County, that's a habit. The deputies do come to the board meetings and ask questions. If you got a complaint on speeding or whatever out on Tamarack Road or whatever, let's talk to them. That's what goes on there, I've seen it. But they're not here, so moving forward. Correspondence. This first one's quite interesting after only sitting here for a month and a half or two.
So, I thought this, yeah, I got it up on the screen, so, I don't know how many of these you guys get, but this came from Frank's email address. And it said, "Hi Laura, I will need you to make a payment deposit of $3,000 through wire transfer today. Let me know when you are available so I can send the bank details. Kindly regards, Frank Sauter, sent from my iPad." So I called Frank and I said, "Frank, what do you need $3,000 for?" Isn't it frankpalmyra.townboard@gmail.com?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's how sophisticated they are. Yeah,
So,
that sounds crazy.
We thought you should see that because
That
it's,
we get them, and I've been getting more lately that it started out at 1.5 million on the Harris. And it was 5.5. I think the last one is $115 million on the Harris too. And they know that from my email address because my email address somehow relates to the last name of the person that died.
So you're our new best friend?
I am.
Does that mean you no longer need your salary?
That's right.
More road money.
number 2, T-Mobile tower issues. You want to elaborate on that, Josh?
Excuse me. Laura had sent an email out to us, I think over the weekend, regarding a citizen question slash complaint about the T-Mobile/Sprint tower on Tamarack Road, and that had been out of service, and that they had issues with their cell service over the last number of months. Reached out to a handful of contacts, and coincidentally also today, we got a road right-of-way request for fiber optic, which would actually run from, we call it the northerly bend, just north of where that tower is, down to the cell site. But additionally, the landowner knew that T-Mobile had incurred some electrical service issues earlier this spring with the ice storm that we had, and got hung up in some sort of permitting issue. But that was all that they knew. There was, I'll say, an insinuation that there was a problem with the town or with the landowner, and as I'm aware of it, there's neither, and that they were just going through their process of getting permits to be able to reinstate that location, so.
Yeah. Old business, number 1, discussion and possible action pertaining to land maintenance agreement with Nate Mo. I see Nate is here tonight. As you're aware, the last meeting that we had, Nate was kind enough to clean the lot up across the street, what do they call it, aircraft safety zone, for an approach over there in case something happens. He was going to do so after signing something with the lawyer. So he couldn't sue us if something obviously happened there. I think that meeting was on a Thursday. Monday he's planning on doing the hay by Monday afternoon. An email went from one of the commissioners to the lawyer. That threw an iron in the fire. Nate didn't know what to do. Correct me when I'm saying something wrong back there, Nate, am I right? So,
You're right so far?
and so he was somewhat disgruntled. Of course, so was I.
A little bit.
But anyway, by the time he could go at it, as you know, we might as well call it a drought, there was no moisture left in that grass across the street. The day I looked at it, it was great. There was nothing left. There was no sense in him even trying to harvest it, correct so far, Nate?
Yep.
Anyway, so he said if we wanted it cut, he'd cut it down for us, right?
Yeah, and there was some miscommunication between I think me, you, and Bob, but I was basically just trying to say, I'm gonna wait until it greens up, and then I'll cut it.
Okay.
That's all that I was trying to get out.
Well, Saturday, cutting the chase, somebody was over there with a tractor cutting it down with a hay line. I believe Josh went out to see who that was. It was Dave, Mr. Dave Hefkin doing it. I don't know what he had to say about it.
Maintenance.
But nobody seems to know what's going on, and that's why we're having the meeting on the 17th to get an alignment here. Enough said on that. Moving on, discussion, possible action to change the speed limit on Little Prairie Road.
You're looking at me.
You want me to-
I can go forward, that's fine.
Go ahead.
So obviously, at the last meeting, I made a partial motion to put the speed limit signage for 35 to 45 back the way that it was, because the town doesn't have an ordinance to be able to enforce it. We had a number of residents, both for and against the 35 mile an hour and 15 mile an hour speed limit, come to meetings and voice opinions and concerns also with pedestrian safety, trail crossings, and all that kind of thing. Since that point in time, I went out on Little Prairie Road and actually took an inventory of all the signs.
Is that method?
Correct, yes. So I went through, made a map of all the signs and tried to do an index of what they were shorthand. Taking into account that the speed is an issue, the speed around Horseman's Park is a concern and an issue. The visibility of the various trail crossings is also potentially an issue. From the town board's perspective, my opinion remains is that unless we have an engineering study, traffic study done on Little Prairie Road, we cannot reduce the bulk of the speed limit from 45 down to 35. We do have the ability to change the speed limit around the park, Horseman's Park, to 50 miles an hour. But I've also talked to a number of people, both mildly related and completely unrelated, about their opinions of not only the length but the location of that 15 mile an hour zone. And the majority of the folks that I chatted with thought that a speed decrease essentially between 45 and 15, given where it is and given the short duration that it actually is something that may potentially cause more issues than it's trying to solve. So what I went through and did, obviously, again, was to inventory the signs that we had, but also come up with, call it recommendations to the board for trying to achieve a common ground between 45 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, increased signage and visibility for the trail crossings, and ultimately, there's a few areas that conflict with the existing, and even just going back on Google Maps over the course of history, trying to figure out what signs used to be there before all of this kind of got in queue last year to see, paired signs. If it's going to 15 miles an hour on the opposing direction of travel, there should also be an increased sign speed and all those kinds of things. There's a handful of them that we have. And I mean, I can go through each one of these, or obviously you guys got that email as well. But we do have signage that I call them warning placards. It's the little 8x8 square under a curve or at an intersection that warns of a decreased speed because of whether it's a blind intersection. Again, we had conversations about Tower Road last month, and that it's somewhat of a blind intersection and those types of things. We do have some of that type of signage existing as it is. But from a conceptual standpoint, without going through each one of the 30 signs that are on that segment of highway and inventorying them out loud here, my general recommendation with that map as it was drafted, or those maps as it was drafted, would be to pull the 15 mile an hour, work with the town board to pull the 15 mile an hour speed limit off of that section adjacent to Horseman's Park, put up additional warning placards and actually have it at a 25 mile an hour warning placard under each one of the signs. We've got mismatched signage as far as trail crossing, park entrance, and a lack of signage on the opposing side of travel coming out of the village. But additionally, talk with the village and make a request to them to actually have their 25-mile-an-hour zone start at the village and town limits rather than being another 700 yards into the village just before 3rd Street. I think we could, if they're willing to pull that speed limit essentially out to the village and town limit, we would be able to back the signage up going out towards Highway Z or towards the village if that's the direction of travel, and adjust that signage accordingly to use warning signs in lieu of an actual functional speed limit reduction. The idea behind that is to keep people aware, at least in my mind, is to keep people aware of the fact that there's blind intersections, trail crossings. You know, we've got trail crossing signs that are actually after one of the trail crossings and before a different one. So, you know, expanding those zones and actually putting not just, hey, there's a crossing here, but hey, there's a crossing here, you might want to slow down too. Type of approach to this whole thing, to try to find some halfway in between that will slow people down, make the crossings more visible, and also hopefully reduce any potential unwanted issue as a result of kind of compacting speed limits in certain sections, so.
Okay, so I got this, we're going out of town now, you know, where the 35 sign is right at the limit.
Correct.
You want that to be a 25 sign?
No.
Leave it 35.
Leave it, well, technically, we can't enforce that 35 because the zone beyond that sign is actually in the town, and the town does not have an ordinance to enforce 35 mile an hour.
Unless
What I,
we change the ordinance.
correct,
Let's-
or enact one, correct. My recommendation on that sign would to actually be a similar sign to the one as you're coming in towards the village, which is a curved sign with an advisory speed limit of 35. There's a curve as you're coming out of Horseman's Park and down around the corner, so to speak. There's an advisory left-hand arrow curve with a 35-mile-an-hour warning placard under it. I would suggest we do the same thing as you're going out of the village to match that zone and that curve that it's trying to sign.
Okay, now, a month ago, Winona pointed out that we had some signs next to the building, which is going to address some of the issue of the safety. I opened this package up, there's 10 trail crossing signs. All up to code, 30 by 30s, reflective, whatever that's on them. Our sign man from the town, or from the county came down here. We talked about this whole road thing. I had him replace some other signs that needed to be replaced. He's found a spot for 9 of them in the township. And we can use arrows to show, you know, some of them have the arrow, so we can mark those. So those are going to come in handy. The only reason they're not up, because that has nothing to do with the speed limit, is there's some other signs. As far as making that road safe, I know we're getting off the speed limit thing, we discussed this last month, there's gonna be, dangerous intersection signs put up near Tower Road. Okay, both sides, flags on the signs, and we're gonna do something similar down there where, that Josh has brought up. So I was thinking, leave the regular 35 as you're going out. That would, and there is a 35 past the 15 out there now. It then goes to 45 where the blinking sign is out there, back to 45. Now turning around right there is about where that curve sign is, right?
Yeah, it's sign 7 on that was the 35-mile-an-hour arrow. I'm sorry, 8. Just
Okay, so what if we posted, 6 is the 45 going out, what if we posted a 35 going in? With a safe speed of like 30 or 25 around the corner wherever coming in. You know, and then there's also going to be, there's a couple trails right there that aren't marked that will be. You come around the corner, there's no 35 sign there, it says reduce speed to 15, right? Coming in at about,
that'd be sign 12 on that map. Is the
Okay.
15 ahead for Horseman's.
Yeah, so we're gonna eliminate that, correct?
My number one, my numbering apparently jumped to when I made this, but
It does
yes,
look a little different.
yeah, my recommendation would be to remove the 15 ahead sign, and
The 15s.
correct.
So we'll make it a straight 35 with advisory speeds to slow down. And I think, speaking to, Barnes Tyson, he suggested some other caution head type sign. So I think he's got those coming, either to go on the speed limit signs or some sign out there.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the thing that we have to argue with as a board here is whether we have the authority currently, tonight, to make 35 mile an hour on any section of Little Prairie Road, and in my own mind and minds, we don't without a traffic study behind it. Not saying that we can't do a traffic study, but,
We can because of the entrance to the park. That's a rule. When I went to the same school you did, the guy teaching roads, I asked him specifically and told him this whole scenario. He said, you can't drop the speed limit 15 miles an hour. I told him there were curves and hills. Somebody's gonna get killed, that's what he said, okay? And 10 miles an hour, you can go down 10 at a time, but not a drastic measure, unless there's a reason that would be for the park. But it's not a flat, like Highway 59 out here. It's hills and curves, and semis are coming around around the hill and curve there. So
there's two different issues at play with that. Number one is what's the statutory authority of the town to reduce the speed limit? And number two is the Federal Highway Administration's guidance on signage. So if we were to establish, let's say, or be able to establish that this whole road segment should be 35 miles an hour, there's signage requirements, just like there's a 15 mile an hour head sign. There's signage requirements depending on what the decrease in speed is. Anything less than 10 miles an hour, if there's a visible section, people don't need a reduced speed sign. So you could go from, let's just say, as you're coming into the village, because theirs is more dramatic, it goes from 40 to 25, right? So there's a 25 mile an hour sign there because it's a 15 reduction. If it's just 10 miles an hour, you don't have to sign a reduced ahead sign. So just to keep those two aspects of things clear is that one is the actual posted or ordinance related speed limit, and the second would be the signage that would go along to support, what the goal or initiative is behind that ordinance. So kind of half and half why, like for what I'm calling sign number 7, which currently is a 35 mile an hour sign, is to change it to a warning sign of 25 mile an hour ahead, because there's not enough clear sight line between where you come out of the curve as you're coming into the village, you make that last little bend, there's not enough distance between the clear space of that curve and where that 25 mile an hour is, or it's negligible, where if we were to use sign number 7 as a reduced speed sign ahead, people would hopefully continue or keep that speed to slow down as they come into the village, around the corner, along the road, by the campground, all those kinds of things. That was mine.
So a reduced speed to 25 ahead, except when you go around the corner, isn't it 35 down there?
It currently is. This would all essentially be subject to the village being willing. If you look at where sign number 1 is, you might have to pan up on the map.
Yep.
There, Laura.
Yep.
Their first 25 mile an hour sign is just before Bluff Road, or Carlin Trail, call it, right there. That's where it turns 25. So if they pulled that all the way out to where sign number 2 is, we would then be able to back all of the signage out essentially past Horseman's Campground with reduced speed sign ahead, the trail crossings, the arrows that you're talking about, the placards for warning crossings, and those types of things, without actually having an ordinance that says 35 miles an hour and saving the cost of the traffic study. That was mine.
And then just leave it at 45.
Correct. This is gonna sound awful, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Trick the people that don't know any better into slowing down. Because the people that live around here, they're gonna go as fast as they're gonna go anyways, because the sheriff doesn't patrol Little Prairie Road, and they know they ain't gonna get a ticket for it. Flat out, I can guarantee you the day that I took pictures of all these signs to do this inventory, I got passed at 65 miles an hour, no crap, no debate, of people going out of town. 65 ain't 45, ain't 35, ain't 15. People that know they ain't gonna get pulled over ain't gonna slow down. That's where number 8 on our report would come in handy with having somebody every once in a while just pop some lights on to remind people there is a speed limit on a whole bunch of different roads in this community. But
So
I
at,
stepped down from my soapbox.
okay, so at the curve going out of town where it says 35, just take the sign down, or is that gonna be a 45 sign?
No, change it to a 35 curve ahead sign to match the one that's actually as you're coming into town where it says 35 curve ahead.
Okay, that makes sense. And eliminate the 15 signs and put up the cautionary signs that you would like, extra cautionary.
Trail crossing,